Hey guys, and welcome back to the Kobi Simmat audio experience. In this episode of Talking Business with Kobi Simmat, I've had a great conversation with Brett Trainor of the B2B 0 to 10 podcast. That's $0 to $10 million. So yes, you heard it right. So if you want to find out how to get your business to that $10 million mark, I think you're going to want to listen to this episode. We discuss how I scale best practice from a one-man team in 2004 to 70 plus people now, and the benefits of allowing your team members to do more of what they enjoy doing, and most importantly, the importance of digital marketing. Really interesting to discuss a little bit about salespeople and how you can use salespeople to grow your organization. Stay tuned. Talking Business with Kobi Simmat. We're talking about business.
Kobi, to get us started, why don't you share with the audience a little bit about your background and what you're working on today, and then I'll take us back through a quick journey of what you're working on.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So I run a firm called Best Practice. We started that firm in 2004. And essentially what I'm really passionate about is I'm really passionate about creating organizations that are great places to work. It's about empowering leadership and empowering teams to do great work and empowering team members to kind of understand what their why is and their vision and purpose, to also have those organizations have an amazing buying experience. So I have a huge amount of empathy, and I empathize with the customer of our customers. And then the final part of kind of what I'm driven by is that those organizations become good investments. And, it can start with, a business owner saying, I'm going to start my own business, or an entrepreneur says I'm going to start a business because I want business freedom. It's not always about the money. It's about working, getting up every Monday morning and being excited about the work that you're doing. And so, we have those kind of three key stakeholders that are part of our passion. So working with teams and putting team members first, working with customers and putting customers, kind of second, if you like, and then by and large, that creates a huge amount of value for the stakeholders. And I guess I've played with which order of priority we put people in, but in the wise words of Richard Branson, he says, if you put your staff first, you put your team members first, they'll put your customers first, and then it's going to pay dividends, literally. So best practice is all about anything under that vision is fair game. So we work with teams. I'm very passionate about that, and leadership development, and then individual empowerment. And then obviously keep focusing on this customer experience. So you do those things and the money comes. So we've been doing that since 2004. We rebranded to Best Practice in 2009. Initially we were a management consultancy company. My background is in management, general management. That's what I studied. A couple of different diplomas and bachelor degrees. And I think I've arrived at this point in my career because I spent a lot of time giving people unsolicited advice.
Right.
And I can talk a lot. I can talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles, and put my head in a fish tank. I won't stop talking. So I think, I've gotten to a point where I do see opportunities for improvement. I can't help but open my mouth and say something. And so what I've personally been doing myself is trying to go on this journey of, well, how can I be a better coach? How can I be more influential? And so, that's where we're at with Best Practice. And we picked a term in 2009 that we just thought was a good idea, but now people use it every day. They're saying best practices.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. So we've kind of slid into third base right at the right time with our brand, which has been really good.
Well, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I had the podcast is, a lot of the times I'll have founders that have gone through a startup journey, but they're not necessarily founders, right? At some point you lose the founder title and you become a business owner, and, you start to expand. And like I said, your journey's gone through many pivots over the years. And at the end, I do want to get into, how the markets have changed, dynamics changed, how can we take advantage of this? But first, let's go back, right? So what were you doing before you started Best Practice? And did you always knew you wanted to start a business and just said, hey, what can I do? Or how did you take the first step?
Yeah, look, if I think about high school, and I think about, I go all the way back to 13 years old, And, sitting in a class with my social science teacher, and he says to everybody, you're doing a little case study and you're filling out a little bit of paper, a sheet of paper. And he says, what does everyone want to be? And, there's like, I'm going to be a fireman, and I'm going to be a policeman. I'm going to be a nurse, and I'm going to be a pilot. And I grew up in a high school where there was a lot of 50% of the fathers. It was at a time in the 80s when not all of the mothers worked. I guess some of the mothers were starting to work. It was very much a kind of, middle class suburban area. And a lot of the dads worked in banking. They were, had been tellers and worked their way into middle level management in the banks. And I'm filling out this form, and I said, I'm going to be a business owner. So at 13 years old, and, he said, well, what do you want to be? And I said, well, look, I'm going to be an architect, because my dad was an architect, and it wasn't an architect working for someone. It was like, no, I'm going to design houses for people, and I'm probably going to build them. And so I guess I grew up in a family where my dad was a business owner. I don't know any different. I don't know how to do a 9 to 5. I don't know what, switching off and switching on is. Like, I wasn't taught that I didn't have that example set for me. I had an example of, you go on holidays, and while you're on holidays, you look at sites and you go to inspections and you go to townhouse developments or hotels that are being built, and you kind of, oh, cool, dad's, we're going on holidays, we're going to get to stay in a hotel, and we're going to go to the theme parks. And dad's like, we'll go to the theme parks after we've been to this building site and this building site and this building site. And then, in the half a day of the end of the week, on the Friday afternoon, you get to go to the theme park just as it's closing,
Yeah. Well, that's normal holiday for everybody, right?
Yeah. So, that's my story.
Yeah. It's one, I don't think I can tell you from experience, you didn't miss anything by not doing the 9 to 5 or the corporate job. I do like to think it taught me a lot of things, more what I really wanted to do, better late than never. But you're right. It was just a different time, and what you learned. I mean, quite honestly, coming out of high school, I thought I was going to be a game warden, which here mean that monitors, the lakes and the parks and, that type of thing. My idea is outside all day, not a care in the world. But then, taste of business. I'm like, all right, maybe the game warden thing is something I can do in retirement, but,
100%.
Enjoyed the challenge of it. So, all right. So, what was the first company? Were you doing? Did you start something solo in the consulting space and then expanded it? How did that kind of evolve?
Yeah, look, I guess as you do, you kind of finish high school, and I worked at a general store through high school, and I guess the trials and tribulations of small business is my dad's business didn't go very well. He's an incredible architect, but the actual business side didn't go real well. And then in the collapse of the late 80s, the global financial crisis of the late 80s, my family's, his business struggled and the building industry collapsed. Eventually, the whole business collapsed. So my journey is kind of tied to that, because I was essentially self-funded from when I was 15. So whereas, I grew up in a middle-class area where, my friends' parents kind of give them some money to go do things on the weekend. I worked on the weekend for my money to spend.
Right.
So I got a job when I was 14 and a half, cleaning. So we grew up near a river, and I would go down to the general store, and they had hire boats, fishing boats. And so I would clean out all the bait and, shrimp and everything out of the, smelly shrimp out of the bottom of the hire boats, and then eventually progressed to be the manager of that business. So finishing high school, I started a business diploma straight out of high school, because I had been running this business. And so I literally, it was natural progression for me to go do that, because I'd been working as much as I possibly could, school holidays, afternoons, weekends. I didn't study at high school. So I kind of failed everything at high school, and I didn't get myself into university. And so then I basically, did these casual jobs in hospitality. So I studied, kind of had this hospitality thread. That business diploma was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because at 19 years of age, then 20, when we finished high school here in Australia at 18, and then 19, 20, I did 2 years full-time business diploma, every practical component of running a 5-star hotel.
Okay.
And it taught me budgeting, cash flow, industrial relations, leadership, business plans, marketing, legal studies, contract law. It taught me how to cook, taught me how to clean, taught me how to, all the parts of every single component of a 5-star hotel. Bartending, we did, really funny story. We did wine appreciation studies on a Friday morning.
Friday morning, okay.
On a Friday morning, which made team building and negotiation skills on a Friday afternoon really interesting. So, so I have this incredible wine collection now as a result of that. So that set me up to go to do two things. I dragged myself through that into a university degree. So I did 5 years of full-time study straight out of high school. Remember, I was a student that got Fs in everything. And then I went straight into a college, what we call a college, 2 years, and then a university for 3 years. So then I came out of that and I was like, well, what do I do? And so I kind of always had this, I know how to run a business. It's only really a case of getting myself in the right position. Right. So I did do a couple of full-time jobs, but essentially, that was probably a total of about 3 years. And that's kind of my mid-20s. And I started this business when I was 27. Okay.
And was there an idea? What was I always keep it super simple, man. What was the problem you were looking to solve initially?
The problem I was looking to solve was, how do I pay the mortgage? But look, I just was freelance. So I literally my business started as me as a solo consultant, with business advice, writing policy, procedure, setting up systems in business. And I had a little bit of experience kind of, in part of the full-time job I had. They're not notable, the jobs that I did. They were kind of just with a couple of different organizations, at the coalface, and then systems and process kind of stuff. I did a bit of public speaking and training, training people. But I literally started when a client, I quit a job because I was like, I know this is not for me. I didn't know what to do, but I quit my job, and my wife actually gave me an ultimatum at the time, and we've been together 25 years, I think. And we'd been together a couple of years, and she said, look, you're working really hard in this full-time job. I never see you. You need to do something. And so I was like, all right, I burnt myself out. I'm going to quit. I'm going to sit on the beach and go surfing. And a client called up and said, hey, can you come and do a couple of days worth of work for us? So I literally just started freelancing, helping companies, get organized essentially. And that turned, here we are now. I have a team of 70 people essentially doing, different versions and bespoke parts of that work, now 17 years later.
That's awesome. Congrats on that, by the way. I know I'm sure it wasn't easy along the way, but I love those that start kind of organically, right? Or I just had a guy started building a workflow company, because he had a certain consulting business that he started, not too dissimilar to what you did, but then he's like, man, us managing this is a pain. Couldn't find it in the marketplace. So he's now started a software company. And I just love that, because I love those stories. Nothing wrong with, hey, I'm out of college, I've got an idea, let me go raise $2 million and see if I can build something. I don't know, maybe I'm old fashioned, old school, but I like the stories where you start and you build, and it makes sense. It's something that you're tied to. So kind of curious, as we say, there's no overnight success, 10-year overnight success in building. And, you and I have talked offline before about, even 10 years ago, 5 years ago, how you build and scale a business is very different than what it is today. So one, I do want to go back a little bit, because I love kind of the tipping point stories when it's you can bring in business, you're in the middle of everything, right? So I like to say that's the one-to-one journey, right? One-to-one sales, everything's one-to-one, we can bring and get it through. But then when you go to one-to-many, right, it creates, most companies don't actually get to the one-to-many because they can't figure it out. Or if they do, they can't figure out how to process and get all the work done that they've done. So kind of curious if anything you learned or you got right when you're first starting to scale, had to bring people in, you had to connect with more customers. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think, I can't remember if I told you this story offline, but like in 2008, my wife gave me this ultimatum. She had been at her full-time job for 10 years, and she got what we have here is called long service leave. Okay. And so you get, you make 10 years in the Australian environment, and then you get, you essentially get 3 months off. You get 3 months of pay. So you can take a 3-month break, or you can spread it out, whatever, you can do it, kind of work with your employer and say, hey, I'm going to take this. My wife's a traveler. She's a backpacker. She's got to be out. If you say, hey, pull out your spreadsheet, let's plan an international holiday, she starts getting twitchy. So she says to me, look, I've got my long service leave coming up. It was about June 2007. And she said, in next year, after we get through the holiday season with summertime in the Southern Hemisphere, Christmas, she says, I'm going to take off and I'm going to go and do South America. And I'm going to travel down the west coast of South America. You can come or you can stay home. So remember, this is 2007. I started the business in 2004. I'm 3 years into it. I'm like right in the thick of I'm in everything. I'm doing 80-hour weeks, 90-hour weeks. It's just my head is totally occupied with it. We had bought our first piece of real estate. We were looking at our next piece of real estate. I got team issues. I got people starting to grow the business. And she says, I'm going to go on a 12-week holiday. I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, I'm in an airport and I go in. One of the things I've always done is whenever I'm in an airport, I go into the bookstore and I will buy 3 or 4 or 5, whatever I can fit in my carry-on bag, books, business books, whatever's being marketed. I just buy them, like $30, $50, I'll go in and spend $200 and I'll just add them to my library. I'll read them later. Anyway, I go in and I see this book on the shelf, How to Grow Your Business by Taking 3 months Off. And I'm like, perfect timing. So there's a signal. That's the signal. That was the tipping point. Now I don't even know where that book is now. It's around, I've got to find it and add it back into my library. But I was like, well, it's obviously you can achieve it. So what I did was a couple of things. The first thing I did, and if you're a business owner listening to this and you want to kind of say, hey, I haven't had a holiday, I focused on building up the cash in the bank. And so literally, this is simple stuff, right? I just went, right, if I make sure there's enough cash to pay everybody's wages and salaries while I'm away, enough in the bank, then they can kind of sit and do nothing, right? And they're still employed. They can kind of answer the phone. They'll be there. They might break things and make mistakes. Okay, that's fine. But if there's enough money for 3 months of trading in the bank, we're okay.
Yeah.
So I did that. I basically went, okay, build up the cash balance. So I calculated the wages and salaries at the time, which was probably peanuts compared to now. And I said, right, let's make sure. And it might have been, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. I can't remember. But let's put that in the bank. So I did that. Then I just went on this selling spree and I just made sure that I sold everything, set up so many projects that they literally had 12 weeks worth of work ahead of them. And so there was money in the bank, there was projects to do. And so I was like, great. They're literally wages and salaries are covered, projects are covered, they're set. And then I got this notebook, this black notebook, A4 shaped notebook with spiral bound. And I wrote the book of 50 things to do. And I left them with this enormous to-do list. And I said, if anybody has got nothing to do, open that book and do the things like work through the list. So I came home so I took 3 months off. I went to South America. I went into our local telco store and I said, I need a mobile phone that's going to work in South America. They're like, there's no cell service over there. It's a third world country, and I got there and so I went, all right, well, I won't take a phone. So I literally delegated 100%.
Wow.
So I think that's the lesson for small business owners, particularly who want to scale, is you've got to delegate and elevate. You've got to do less to be able to do more. Like, it's not just do more. And that's the mistake that a lot of small business owners make. And that's the tipping point. 100%. You've got to do less to do more. So less, then more. So you've got to clear your calendar before you can fill it again with stuff. So I got to this point where, and I want to tell a long story, but blend in some lessons. So then I was like, right, off we go. I get to South America. There's self-service everywhere. In fact, it's better than
Of course,
I could have had a mobile phone. I could have been talking, anyway. So it was good for the business. I came home and that was the day I got home, was literally the day the global financial crisis of 2008 started.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So I didn't realize at the time, like I came home and we had no work. They had done all the projects. They had spent their wages. We had good accounts receivables, so we're collecting money, but we had no one any work to do. So I was like, that's okay. So I literally had to go back into sale mode. What I realized, I hadn't delegated sales. I hadn't employed a business development, sales, tendering, kind of person, because I had that was kind of the last thing, and I didn't think about that because I never thought about the fact that. So we went, in the next 6 months after that, we hired our first salesperson, and our sales team now is like 10 people. We got a marketing team of 10, a sales team of 10. Where we are today is I'm really looking at, what's in the crystal ball and what's over the horizon. But yeah, that, I guess those are the lessons is, you've got to do less. You've got to do less to be able to do more. You've got to to be able to grow, you have to prune. Like if you're doing gardening and you're growing hedge in the garden, you've got to prune it to shape it to how you want it. You let it grow, you see where it goes, you prune it back, you let it, and if you want your hedge to go up, you've got to prune the sides to get it to go tall. So I think that that's a couple of lessons. So for me, we then go, okay, we look across the organizational chart, we start drawing an organizational chart and saying, okay, what positions have we got? Whether it's a football team or a baseball team, or we look at the positions on the field now and we say, okay, well, where have we got strengths? Where have we got weaknesses? And now I run my business exactly like a sporting team.
Interesting. Okay. No, it makes perfect sense, right? What your strengths and weaknesses, where the production is going to come from. And, that's it. I don't know if ironic, but one of the funny thing is when I meet with owners and even founders is they start to think about, hey, when I start to scale and where do I need to add resources? Maybe that's my process side that I've been in forever, thinking about, hey, from, the buyer enablement or sales enablement to customer there. To me, it's a process, right?
That's right.
And you look where the bottlenecks are. In some companies, it's the delivery. So if you're a training organization, you have to deliver and do these things. You may need 5 or 6 trainers for the 2 people that are selling with the business, but, map it out. It doesn't have to be super deep, super complicated, but you start to see patterns of where you're going to have to invest. And, it's going to be a good segue a little bit later to get to maybe how that's changed and where the resources are going. Yeah. But one question, did you struggle with, I'm sure the early days you had a lot of generalists, really good people that could do a lot of different things. But when you get to a certain size and there's enough dedicated work, you start to specialize. I'm yet to meet an owner yet that didn't struggle with that transition, because of the people that have been with you from the beginning, there probably still are, but you have to navigate that role being minimized in their eyes, that they're not the everything. Just kind of curious, have you had those transitions?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. I can think about, people that have been in the business over the journey, because it has been a long time and it's a lot of people. I can think about those generalists. I now have a strategy around that. And this is a really great piece of advice for anyone listening, which is I want you to go back and look at last week. So look at last week and look about, literally go back to your diary, because we don't often retrospectively do this. Like, do a year in review or a month in review or a week in review. Go backwards, not forwards. Forget forwards for a minute and just go, what do I want to do less of? And what do I want to do more of? And so I did that myself, and I literally picked it up from Tim Ferriss. Like, Tim Ferriss has got the famous business podcast, got some great advice. And he's like, don't do a strategic plan or a business plan, do a post-mortem.
Yeah.
So I do these post-mortems on myself the whole time. And I go, life, I'm getting old enough now that I realize that life is not sitting and waiting for this like moonshot, it happens slowly. And I've got a really insightful story to tell in a moment around what's happened just in the last couple of months for me. But what I'd like to encourage people to do is look at last week, look at your diary. And if your diary's blank, you're not organized. And then if your diary has got stuff in it, you can say, well, what did you like doing and not doing? So the first thing is, if you can't look at last week's calendar because there's nothing in it, you're reacting every day. So the first thing you want to do is get proactive. So plan next week. So every Sunday night, round about between 4 and 5 o'clock, I sit down, I crack a beer, and I go, right, let me just check my week is set up properly. I've got all, and I look at, the blocks in my diary. Like I literally have a second screen next to me right now, and all of this week and all of, like my life is planned 6 weeks in advance. I have the beautiful advantage of having an incredible assistant, and she manages my life. My wife and my assistant talk a couple of times a day. I talk with her a couple of times a
Perfect.
day. Yeah. And so there's a really good, she works remotely. She lives 1,000 kilometers from where we are. She's moved to a beautiful beachside location right up in the north of New South Wales, between New South Wales and Queensland, on the Gold Coast, just south of the Gold Coast. So her husband's building a building company. They're young. She's working from home. She's doing great. So anyway, that's an ideal scene for a lot of people, and I appreciate that. But in the postmortem of last week, I can look at last week and I say, what did I do? I'm having too many catch-ups with people. I'm having too many little like 1-hour meetings. And so I said, look, going forward, change every 1-hour meeting to 25 minutes. So I can fit more meetings into the day. I need the 5-minute break to go to the bathroom or make a coffee or a tea or a quick bite to eat. And then, so a good day for me is 13, 14 meetings on Zoom or whatever right now because of the pandemic. And I can just smash through them, and I got that 5-minute break. They can go overtime by a little bit. Everybody that books them, she's really tight with them. So, and I get I've got the assistants, and I get I've got more money for resource and stuff. So a small business owner, you've got to do that yourself. So Sunday night, get ready to plan your week and just go, okay, look at last week. What didn't you like doing? Don't plan to do things you don't like doing.
Right.
When that started to work for me, I went to my managers and I said, you got to do this. You've literally got to do this, because then I want to see the cracks. And so we have this agenda item with our monthly managers meeting where we say, I want to know, frankly, you've got to be really frank about what you're failing at, because they know that I'm coming in with a resource where they're frankly failing, where that thing is their strength. And so if we've got, like, if you think about a high performance team on a field, if you've got 2 players and there's a weakness between them and a crack between them, you're going to put something in that, like you're going to move the team into defense, you're going to move the team into offense. So you've got to manage your team, and then you've got to, the advanced masterclass on this is then you've got to look at your competitors. So as a business owner, there's 2 things. You've really got to be managing your own process, but if you relax, your competitor will attack.
Yes.
So you've got to be, we in business, we talk about competitors, but we fail to realize that it's the team on the other side of the field who's attacking. And if you don't do the right thing by your customer, your goal, then your competitor's going to score a goal. So if there's one sale available, you get it or your competitor gets it. You don't want to lose that sale to your competitor, because it has a doubly compounding effect. Anyway, that's a separate discussion. So the tipping point for me was delegate and elevate. And the tip here is look at how you're drifting. You drift towards the things you like doing, and you drift away from the things you don't like doing. So as the leader, the founder, the entrepreneur, even a manager, if you're listening to this, look at your team around you and look for the cracks, and don't say, hey, you got to fill that crack. Let them go. So I literally untie the rope and I let people drift. And we talk about this. I say to the managers, to their teams, watch where your people are drifting. Let them drift in that direction. Keep saying to them, what do you want to do more of and what do you want to do less of? And then hire for the less, because then when we're going into a recruitment phase to grow the team, we say, we've got a whole bunch of people who don't want to do this task. Are you passionate about that? Now, if someone walks into an interview and goes, why don't they like doing it? I don't want to do it. It's like, you're not the right person. See you later. Next. And they say, I can't believe they don't like doing that. I love doing that. Okay, you're hired.
Right. I actually love that process. And I've never heard, you've taken it to the next level, right? Because I do, review your day. Actually, I don't think a lot of people do the postmortem from the week before and look ahead. But then 2, you're right, man. We got to double down on people's strengths and strengths on what they like to do. And there's always somebody likes to do something that you don't.
Absolutely.
And Man, that transition must have been hard, but it's got to be unbelievable rewarding for not just you, but the team to be able to do what they want to do, right?
The easiest way to create a great culture is just let everybody do what they want to do. Like,
right.
So hire people that, like, you got to get stuff done. So I did have this transition, like about 10 years ago, I went, I hired a management consultant, come in, help me. And this management consultant was, you've got to hold people accountable. You've got to write policy and procedure. You've got to have system and process, put all the graphs on the wall, and everybody needs a job description. And if they're not doing it, you counsel them and you performance manage them. And I was like, and I fell into that trap. It's
sure.
Like, stay on your post, stay in your position. Everybody's got to have a post and stay on your post. And then, funny story, I read this book by Seth Godin, great author. If anyone listening is not following Seth Godin, follow Seth Godin. And Seth Godin, in one of his books, he says, don't tie the cow to the post. And that's what I was like, what, you hear business owners say, let everybody have a long leash. Don't have a leash. Like,
take the leash off.
Take the leash off. It's hard. I hear everybody, and it's easy for me to say this because, I paddled hard, and I caught the wave and I'm surfing and I've got like the best wave, on the planet right now. And it's amazing. And it doesn't come without hard work and the lessons. But I guess my strength that I have for the audience is I can break these things down and tell the story and make it look simple. What the audience, what you guys listening have got to really think about is, okay, how do you break that down? How do you analyze that? How do you build your confidence? And I do offer to everybody, if you need to send me a direct message to have me help you build the confidence to make this leap, I can show you the stepping stones across the river. There is a raging torrent, and I can show you where to place your feet on your journey and the steps that I took. And, the mistakes that I made were, forcing people to do things they don't like doing, thinking I need to hold everybody accountable, those kinds. And it's ironic how counterintuitive it is. It's literally the opposite.
Yeah. No, again, back to my time in corporate America, 100% right. We had everybody's accountability, build silos, handoffs, and just everything that's wrong with companies. What you could get away with it back in the day, especially on the B2B side, because everybody was doing it. And like I said, when I came, the plus side of the pandemic, if anything, it's created a bunch of new opportunities. As crisis creates opportunities. Yeah. And I think the way you're building that team, you're ahead of the curve. And, with this podcast being the 0 to 10, right? Most of these companies and teams are either just starting or in the process. Now is the time to do this so it can go with you versus trying to rebuild. It's almost impossible. So no, I love that advice. And first time I've heard it to that level of detail too, which is cool.
Yeah. So the final disclaimer is, what if I've got someone who wants to do something that we don't offer? What do I do? The best thing that you can do, most founders, entrepreneurs have got huge networks of people. The best thing you can do is to work your network and say, you know what, I got to get this person out of my business as quick as possible. And I want to find them a nice home. So it's about sitting with that person and saying, look, I'm sorry, but we've got this work here that I get you don't like doing. And there is the work that you love doing or the thing you want to do that's in other organizations. And so just tactically what we've been doing with people like that in our team lately is we run a one-on-one session, we get on LinkedIn and we search the skill set that's attached to what they like doing. And we show them the companies that currently employ people doing that thing. And the LinkedIn database is getting more and more powerful every day. Unfortunately, it's taken kind of 17, 20 years to go viral. Unfortunately, with LinkedIn, it didn't do what Instagram did or Facebook did. But right now, LinkedIn is getting a huge amount of momentum, and you can search skill and it'll give you people with the skill. It'll give you people with the skill. You can see where they work. You can see where they've worked, and then their network is endorsing them for that skill. And so if you can attach the skill, if you can figure out the skill that attaches to the work they want to do. So I did this with a junior person just 2 weeks ago. We just said, look, we can clearly see you don't want to be here. You're not enjoying our industry. You enjoy the work, but not our industry. We can see you want to move into fashion. And so we searched for the skills against fashion industries. And in fact, I just said to her, tell me 10 companies that are your favorite brands that you would die to work at. And she was like, oh, she gave me 3 or 4. We searched them on LinkedIn. We found the founders. I made her send connection invitations. So she's now opening up conversations with the founders of those companies, of the brands she loves. So then she leaves. We're on good terms. There's no bridges burnt. I'm patient. I can let her go through kind of recruitment processes. That's happening right now. I'm not going to name who the person is, but
sure.
We've done it 3 or 4 times with people. And so we offboard them really quickly. And then you've got the amazing opportunity to go back into the recruitment process and go say, okay, you are the smart, everyone listening, you're the smartest you've ever been right now. You're the most experienced you've ever been right now. And you've got to keep improving and you've got to have new versions. And so your recruitment process is going to be, every time you go through it, you're going to get better at it. And the case in point that I use is the very first iPhone I bought was an iPhone 3. I've had every single iPhone from an iPhone 3. I've now got an iPhone 12 Pro Max. There has been 9 versions of iPhone. So your business is going to keep having versions, and you've got to think improved version. You've got to define your recruitment process. You've got to knock out, just on a blank sheet of paper with a pen, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe there's 10 steps to the winning formula for recruitment. And in fact, you can get that for free off my website. If you go to bestpractice.biz, there's a winning formula for recruitment guide. You can click the button, no email address, and read it. It's my procedure that I use, free. And so maybe we'll drop a link somewhere for that.
100% we will, yeah.
So then I don't skip a step in that process. So then I say, okay, we've got a gap in our team. Think about football. Like I see you got Iowa State on your jacket there. So if you think about, the team, whether it's baseball or football, or netball, or pick a sport, or soccer. So you just say, okay, well, we've got a team. We can see a player is attacking through a gap. We got to fill that gap with someone. And what they do with rookies at the beginning of the season is they say to the rookies, just go on and do your thing. And that's what I do with people. I say, just go on the field and just do what you love doing, because I don't need to help you love your job. You just love it because I'm letting you do what you love doing. So the culture in our organization has that as its base foundation. We play a little bit in the top end of really great culture with initiatives. But the first way to build a great culture is to help people do the work they love, either for you or offboard them to do the work they love with someone else, and use your huge amount of value and network to help someone. And they will, I can think about people that have done that for me when I was, in my late teens and my early 20s. The people that helped me, they are the memorable managers in my life.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I think this ties back again, where I think you were way ahead of the curve, when you're talking about, employees first, team first, then customers, and everything else takes care of. 100%, and it took me a number of years to finally come to the realization, because I was like, man, if you have the right product and you execute, you're going to build a great company. But the more folks I talk with you and people, just, the beauty of this podcast is, 125 conversations. Now, if you go an open mind, you're going to learn some things. And I've completely gone, 180 on this. And with you, I'm like, start with, if the employees aren't excited about what you do and they're not happy to be there, your customers certainly aren't going to be. And then where's the business going to go? Yeah. And you can out execute, but I think you're working twice as hard on the same process. So yeah, I've been kind of enlightened in the last few years with the importance and how badly most companies do what you're doing or don't do it at all. So, and even to tie off on that, the folks that have gone through and you've helped them find out, they're going to tell 100 other people how cool that was, that they help them get into their dream job. And they're like, that's a place I'm going to want to work. So yeah, I think it's going to pay off. It probably already is paying off for you, but just as you scale. And then there's people who can say that's not scalable. I'm like, yes, it is, right? Because if you start bringing folks in that have that mindset and it keeps repeating itself, you can't scale it if you're trying to rebuild, which again, I want to be respectful of your time. We could probably talk for 3 hours, but I do want to get into I had somebody on the podcast, Marty Sanchez, 3 or 4 months ago. And he coined the phrase, the rise of the inbound CEO, right? Because really hard to separate you as the owner from the brand.
Yep.
Or you don't want to anymore, right? Just trying to grow a brand that isn't humanized, right, is makes it even more difficult. And I know, when we started connecting a little bit ago, the amount of activity and the content that you guys put out, the forms and the free ungated stuff that you put, obviously was a strategy. Is this something recent adoption, or when did you start to realize the power of the content and how that's going to help you drive the business?
Yeah, look, that starts with an enormous regret.
Okay.
So my son was born in 2011, and my wife at the time was our marketing manager for a short amount of time. So we went on that big trip, and then she came back, and she actually resigned after that trip, resigned from her job about probably 6 months later.
Okay.
And so this is 100% my responsibility. I'm not blaming anybody. It's my fault that I built our first website. I built on Dreamweaver. I wrote the HTML code.
Yeah.
And this is, so we're talking kind of late 2004, early 2005. I launched the website using a dial-up internet connection. We're talking like kilobytes per second, not megabytes a second. Yeah. And it would take 6 hours to upload the website. You make a change, and I was I was in there making changes, and I kind of like, this is about, perfect is the devil as far as business launching is concerned. Like, you just don't go for it. You've got to get version 1 and version 2 and keep, basically you got to be working on the engine of the race car while you're racing it. You got to have your fingers in the fully operational cylinders fixing things. But so we hired somebody, and we started to build a marketing team, and they were great people and did great work. But one kind of thing that I regret doing was we switched off Google AdWords because the team weren't happy with how the website looked to represent the brand. And kind of we had this 2-3 year project to kind of do and relaunch the website. And so they weren't when I left them to manage that, weren't confident to point our AdWords at our dysfunctional website. So I just went, okay, and so my fault was I didn't kind of get in and say, no, we've got to keep this running. So I regret not going really hard on AdWords really early. So how that plays out today is that with social media, I went really hard on YouTube about 6 years ago. And then based on this, kind of driven by this, I see this incredible opportunity. And I do see a long way over the horizon. I'm going to see what's happening. And so right now, my piece of advice to everybody is I really regretted not going hard on Google. And the way that I felt about Google AdWords is the way that everybody listening to this feels right now about TikTok.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So I'm saying go hard on TikTok right now, and you're like, you're an idiot. So what was happening was I regretted not going hard on AdWords because people were saying, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. That's wrong. It's wrong. AdWords now, we spend, between $25,000 and $50,000 a month on AdWords, Google AdWords. So,
and when you're the ad, just to clarify, it's not all transactional ads by now. It's more creating the awareness.
Brand awareness.
Okay.
Brand awareness. And so if anyone is contemplating TikTok and you're like, it's for 12-year-olds doing dances, it's not. They just brought out their ad product, and the ridiculous amount of organic reach you can get right now on that platform is incredible. So what AdWords was doing was, if you spent money on AdWords, your website would get an artificial lift from an SEO perspective. And so my website wasn't getting lifted, and I wasn't spending money on AdWords, and I regret doing that. So anyway, long story short, we went really hard 6 years ago on YouTube. We basically did a video every single day for about 4.5 years. We've kind of backed off. We went hard again last year at the start of the pandemic. We went live twice a week. So we have this 1,000 video strong YouTube channel. Now what we're doing is we're lifting some of those videos with YouTube advertising. So we're lifting the views. And the behavior we've seen on YouTube is that you are more likely to watch a video. If you're doing research to learn something on YouTube, you as an individual and everyone listening is more likely, the behavior is, I'm more likely to watch a video with thousands of views than a video with 2 views. So I'll do my search and I'll look at the list and I'll see videos with lots of views, videos with no views. Now the video with no views might be a better video.
Right.
The presenter might be more influential, but social proof of numbers of views is, well, it's got lots of views, it must be good.
Right.
Now,
right, wrong, or indifferent. You're right.
Artificially, you can inflate that.
Yeah.
So what we do now is we take our videos, we test them with our email list, we test them with our audience. We've been practicing a lot. You know, there's thousands and thousands now of videos. There's about 1,000 public videos, I think, on our channel because we're playing with them. What we now do is we artificially lift the views with advertising. So we basically put it as a pre-roll ad. We look at what other people are searching and we serve our video over the top of, people, I'm going to make money on YouTube. I'm going to turn on ads. So I take that opportunity. I run my video in their ad slot. They get a bit of money. Great. It's a similar topic. And so I'm getting my sales videos, my marketing videos, my advice videos to lift in terms of views. So then organically, they still sit there and people will watch my videos. And so it's like a turbocharge to the process. I don't know if I've answered the question, but digital strategy right now is the internet is giving you the opportunity for your catalog to be open for your customers to look 24/7. And I think if you're ignorant to that and you ignore that and you are taking time, so what does that look like? You should, as a small to medium enterprise operator, you've got to be editing your website daily. And if it's not daily, it's weekly. And what is that? A blog article once a week, keep tweaking the words. One of the hardest things on websites I've found over the years is to write all the words and have it as influential copy,
Yeah.
And so you've got to resource that. So as a small to medium size enterprise, you have to invest weekly in a person, a casual, a contractor, a consultant, an outsourced person to be on your website, updating it every day, because your neon sign, it's nighttime everywhere in the world.
It's Vegas.
All the time, and it's daytime everywhere in the world all of the time. And the internet is everywhere in the world. So whether it's your neon lights are on 24 hours or your front door is unlocked 24 hours, like it or not, there's only about 4 hours. Literally, I think for you guys about Saturday night before our Monday starts. So there's really only, there's only kind of the weekend's only about 4 hours. I think if you actually look at the whole time.
Global time zones, yeah. That's interesting. No, it absolutely right. And I think that's where a lot of the big misses are is, hey, I want to start scaling. I'm going to hire more salespeople. I'm like, man, yes, but if we've talked, that's 1-to-1, man, hand-to-hand combat, and every salesperson can hit their quota and do really well. Really hard to scale a business one-on-one. You've got to do what you're talking about is get, again, my super simple, get known, get leads, get customers, keep customers, right?
That's
where
right.
Most of these small businesses struggle is get known, right? Even I, as a small business, can do a much better job of, raising light. Yeah. I had the hype man on, Michael Sheen, he wrote the book, The Hype Book. And he's like, do you really have a good product if nobody knows you have a good product? I'm like, that's really fair. And I know there's changing and moving parts and how to do it. But again, it's just getting out there, you coming on this podcast, talking about your business. I had Norman Crowley, who's an entrepreneur out of Ireland. And this is like his 3rd or 4th company. He did, he's done like software. He did some other services company. Now he's taken on, climate change. So going small project he's hitting, but we kind of talked to him like, well, you've done this now for well over a decade with different companies. What's changed? He's like, well, where I used to have a team of salespeople out there driving the process, now I've got a team of 30 content people that are just getting us out in front of everybody. And then basically he micro processed the internal sales that, hey, this guy's really good, more of a concierge, can help you find, still need that person to help you close the deal, depending on how big your deals is. But, I scream at folks, the top of the world. I mean, it's changing. You need to get out there. And I even took a step back and as you say, postmortem, look back and like, is the trend because I'm only bringing people on the podcast that are thinking like this, but I'm like, I don't know how they were growing and how they're growing now until we have the interview. So there's a big correlation between these smaller high growth companies and the content, and not just content for content's sake, but like you said, make sure it's out there. And I had one last story that Sean Rosensteel, who's coming on, I think he'll be out in a couple of weeks, just recorded, right? He's like, man, SEO, I don't advise people to build their foundation on that. I'm like, whoa, I didn't disagree, but then he put the context around and said, hey, that's going to take you 6, 8, 12 months. If you build a really good website, get content, and then people start coming, there's things you can do with paid ads to create that awareness that's going to jumpstart that SEO for you. And I'm like, amen, hallelujah, right?
I give for everyone listening, I'll give you one statistic. This is ridiculous. So during the pandemic, the local real estate website here in Australia is called realestate.com.au. That website has had a 30% increase in traffic in the last 12 months. So that is already a well-established website, and it has gone to 30%. Now that is just evidence of, people are stuck at home. What can we do? Where accessibility in terms of Wi-Fi speeds are improving, cellular speeds are improving, screens are improving. We've got screens in our pockets, and you just look at anybody that's around you in the community, go out for some exercise outside, and look at a 20 to 30-year-old. The minute that they stop, if they're by themselves waiting for somebody, screen comes out of their pocket and their head is down. I call it turtleneck. Now, I'm not critical of that. I'm not critical. I'm just looking at behavior. That's reality, right? So I started my business when, it was dial-up internet, and there was, I was emailing companies that my clients had one email address. Everybody had an email address when we started, and I was dealing with companies that had one email inbox,
right. Some probably still do.
We just have one email inbox. We have one fax, one email inbox, and one letterbox out the front of the factory. So, so I think the lesson is, you've got to look at yourself as a consumer. And the other thing too, my other piece of advice, the observation I've made, my buyers, the average age of my buyer that I'm selling to stays the same every year. So we all get older, and we kind of think we're being a focus group of one in our own head. Focus group of one. Don't be a focus group of one. Like, I've got to say that. Watch your buyers and then try to estimate, yes, you may be doing business with the same people year on year, and everyone's getting older, and everyone gets a walking stick. Right. But I think the thing that I observed about 4 or 5 years ago was like, actually, hang on a minute. The people we're dealing with are turning over. So at our clients, they're turning over, and they're kind of hiring the same or similar people, same age bracket. So if you see that is the case, somebody who is now 20, in 5 years' time will be 25. So you've got to look at the 20-year-olds, because they bring their habits into the buying cycle. And so, the team that helped me, all the young team members that helped me, sorry about the dog barking,
no worries.
The team that helped me, they all follow each other on Snapchat for their geolocation. They don't use Find My iPhone. They're all connected with each other on Snapchat, and then the reason they use Snapchat is to see where each other are. Right. And so, whether they're going out clubbing, not in the pandemic, but, whether they were going clubbing or going exercising or going outdoors, they can see where their friends are physically located. And so if you do any business in the next 5 years with the generation that are coming through that geolocate each other on Snapchat, your business will need to embrace Snapchat.
Yeah.
And you can't deny that. And so you've got time. What's exciting is you've got time. So say, for example, you've got a fleet of drivers, and those drivers will be 25 years old in 5 years' time, or 26 years old in 5 years' time, you need to make sure you're starting to think about how you show them on a screen where each other are on a map. And that will be part of team culture. I want to open up a map. I want to open up an app, and I want to see where my team members are, so I can connect with them. Oh, I see you're wherever. And it's just they're thinking three-dimensionally about where their team members are, not just the fact that they're on the phone. So, I'm old school. I've got my favorites phone list. And whenever I get in the car or whether I've got a free moment, I just pick up my phone, go to my favorites list and call somebody and talk. I'm old school sales on the phone.
Yeah.
These kids now I want to know geographically where they are. And then they DM each other. So the chat component of our business, I'm struggling with it, to be honest. But we're hearing about people using Slack channels and Slack chat. At Best Practice, it's Google Chat, and the chat in our business is out of control. It's not in a bad way, but it's just
it's preferred channels.
I'm struggling.
You're 100% right. And again, it comes back to why I'm so optimistic about small businesses and being able to accelerate, because part of, and probably have a whole nother discussion on this, I'm confident you could build a 10-figure business with like 10 people in your go-to-market if you got the right content, process, right?
Easy with no startup capital. I would argue with no startup capital. Like, I'm all about build with no capital.
Yeah.
I think that is the ultimate test of your product or service, is if you can build it, you got to ask that question. If you need capital to build it, it's a dumb idea. Start there. Prove to me why it's good. Because if you can build it where your customer pays you up front as a cash flow positive business, that's going to be far better than any business. You're going to have a gun. If you go raise capital, you're going to have a gun to your head from day one.
Yeah.
And, in terms of, they're going to want either A, their loan paid back, or B, their 10X or 5X of their capital. So, there's a lot of expectation built into that. The ultimate test is a cash flow positive business.
I'm with you. I'm old school, and that is, left to the corporate a number of years ago and thought, starting a venture fund would be fun and help these small businesses. But man, I've really been drawn back into the small business space, right? Because again, the opportunity, you got customers, right? You've got an ongoing business, and most importantly, you've got cash flow. So how do you take some of that cash flow, reinvest, and make the growth? So I'm with you. I like speculation, because I'm sure there's some really good companies, and history has shown, right, those breakthroughs. But the numbers, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I use all the time, less than 10% of all companies get to 1 million, less than 1 get to 10. So all these companies raising money never get to 10 million. And I know we celebrate the raises, and it's, it's a $1 billion unicorn on, 70 million in revenue. How the hell that happens, that's a whole nother conversation. But I think for the vast majority, 95% of the folks looking to build a business, this is the way you do it, and you can do it, and the opportunity is there right now. But get that product and the service and the solution right. And again, they will pay you if you get it right. So
that's right. Absolutely.
Love it. All right, Kobi, I know I've taken a ton of your time, but I do have to ask you one question that I've asked everybody that's been on the podcast. And that is, what is one thing that you'd highly recommend? It could be professional or personal. What's top of mind right now for you?
My number one tip, without fail, and I say this to everybody, is you have to read business books for a minimum of 30 minutes every single day. And if you're someone listening earning a wage or a salary, if you're somebody running a business, I guarantee you will double your income if you read for an hour for 365 days in a row. Because what's happening to me, and I'm evidence of this, is that last year during the pandemic, I literally had some really tough challenges to solve. How do we keep businesses open? How do we keep people employed? How do we still make profit? How do we do all those sorts of things? And I literally had a book on my shelf right here. I sat at this very desk, and it solved that. I literally read a chapter of a book that saved me $1 million. So my number one tip is, I wish that someone had given me that advice when I started, because I kind of dabbled in it and I bought books here and there, but and you saw me do this the other day, we're talking offline, like we were having that great chat. I literally bought those 4 books straight away from, a combination of Amazon and eBay. So eBay is really good here in Australia for I like to buy secondhand books. Like I think environmentally, that's the right thing to do. It's obviously it's better than it going in the shredder. I do want to support the authors, obviously. And the way that I do that is I recommend their books. And so, anything that's good gets a ton of traction in our book reviews and our magazine and our website. So I like to buy secondhand books from eBay. But if it's got to be brand new, it's brand new. But you've got to be a perpetual in perpetuity student. Yes. And I think the biggest mistake that I see every single business leader, not just owner and founder, but leaders make, is the investment in the offline professional development of reading. And it's not necessarily just about blogs, but I think the good thing about business books is they've been through an editor, they've been through a publisher, they've been through a proof of concept, they've been marketed, they've kind of been tested. And so they kind of touch all those social proof influence points. And as an advocate for that, I'm sitting right here in amongst a huge business book library. My studio in our office has got over 500 business books in it. And so, and the things that I'm reading and what's being followed is just really great stuff. So then when I get those books, I go into that book and I look for the author's TED Talk. If that author was allowed to speak for 20 minutes on the absolute strength, and it goes back to strengths, I'm going to ask that author. I don't want the padding, and you need a thicker book because you want to know you're getting your value for your $25 or $30.
Right.
But the author's actually got a TED Talk, and if you look at Simon Sinek's gold is in his 15-minute TED Talk, where he's had 5, 6, 7, I think it might be close to 10 million views now. That start with why is his TED Talk. And so he explains that principle. So I can't labor enough and I can't stress enough how important that is to lean into it. I just bought 20 books on mergers and acquisitions. That's the thing that I want to become the student of. We're going to continue to grow organically, but I am now I want to start doing deals. We want to start doing acquisitions. We want to start doing divestments. And that is how we're going to grow. Now,
just had her on the podcast 4 episodes ago, Jennifer Bondrave, and she's all about now what? A survivor's guide in thriving through mergers and acquisitions. And we had it again. I'm not going through it, but I've got notes in each of them. I think to your point is so good. And it took me a long time to get back into the reading, because you don't have to have 100 things, right? It could be just a couple of notes that you got from one point that changes the way you think, and it expands and it really resonates with you. And so it's really, really good advice.
Yeah. And I think if I was going to recommend one book for somebody who hasn't started that journey, get a copy of Carol Dweck Mindset. And I'm not there yet. So I'm going to learn this. I'm a really good student. As business owners and business leaders, we've all got ego. And, the biggest mistake we can make is also our advantage, which is I'm smarter than everybody in the room.
Right.
And that is, we know that's the cardinal mistake, right? But you can lean into that and you say, well, if you're the smartest person in the room, that's excellent. You can learn more because you can go and learn this. So are you smarter than these authors writing these books? Well, maybe not. You can start to pique the curiosity. And I know I've labored on this point, but it's just so important.
It is important. 100% agreed. And we'll link that in the show notes as well. And it's always be learning. And I think when I started this journey 3 or 4 years ago now, wow, I thought I knew everything about B2B and go to market, right? I've doing this forever. I've run these functions, but I would say my core is probably still 75% what I know, but times have changed. People have changed my thinking of the way that we do it. And again, the people component of this is much more critical than I had anticipated. So I love that advice. And I do need to do, like I said, I think I've had 30 plus authors on. I did actually take from our last chat. I'm starting to map out how do I do a little book review video of each of them as they come through, because like I said, I read every one before they come on. So I can give you at least my 2 cents on it. So So Kobi, thank you so much for doing this. I do want to have you back on for a part 2 because I just think there's so much value. But in the short term, yes, people go check out his content. It's unbelievable. He gives it all away, which I'm also a big believer in, which changed my thinking, right? Gated. I actually had somebody on LinkedIn the other day, man, thank you for this. And it wasn't even gated. I'm like, I can't say that was my idea, but it works. So, anyway, so what's the best place to find you, Kobi?
Yeah, look, our website is bestpractice.biz, B-I-Z. And that's our website. You can get me at all my handles on all social media. So Instagram, LinkedIn is just at Kobi Simmat, Kobi Simmat. You can Google me. I have an enormous digital footprint, as you know. I'm really easily reachable on direct message on LinkedIn or direct message on Instagram. My email, I'm going to give it away because I give everything away. It's kobi@bestpractice.biz. So if you want to reach out to me, please do that. I do give all my content away for free because what I sell is proximity. So, and that's just the value ladder. So I would encourage everybody, be the person that just focus on helping people. I don't want money to be the barrier to somebody else having success.
Learning. Yeah.
So if I can give someone a little bit of momentum, I get to brag that I helped you succeed.
No, it's awesome. And again, even on LinkedIn, that's where I follow you most of the time. I got to pick it up on some of the other channels. Your content's phenomenal. So it's coming from Australia. So you get it, or if you're here in the States, you get a little bit of a delayed start, but no, it's fantastic. So Kobi, thank you again for joining us. And like I said, we'll definitely have you back on for a more in-depth conversation about the here and now, and how do we take advantage of this. So I appreciate it.
100%. And everybody go well. You're only a Google search away from success.
All right, man. Have a great rest of your day.
See you guys. It's been great having you with us here. If you want to reach out to me directly, the best place to do that is go and follow me and send a connection invitation to me on LinkedIn. I've also got a great Instagram page. My team helps me curate that. So follow me on Instagram at Kobi Simmat. Follow me on LinkedIn at Kobi Simmat. And if you want to send me a direct message, if something resonated in this podcast with you and it was valuable and you are going to be able to use it, then please send me a direct message on LinkedIn and let me know. So I love hearing from our listeners. I love hearing from our audience, and I'm here for you, hopefully helping you to create an organization that's a great place to work, an organization that's got a great buying experience for your customers, and that becomes a great asset and an investment for everybody that's there as part of the team. Okay, this is Kobi Simmat. I'm signing off. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and I will be right with you in the next episode.